that she wanted to keep busy. So I don't want y'all to think I'm not compassionate. As I heard her say, I got to keep the councilwoman. I was like, oh, don't do that to me.
You know, I was talking about how busy I was because I owe Miss Mary Lou a phone call. So, well, we were
It ain't on me, Miss Mary Lewis.
No, we were at the event today and she called.
Hi, everybody. It is 6:30. Thank y'all so much for taking time out of your schedules to join us. And I know you're looking like, oh, we don't see your face. But I'm trying to put some lipstick on so y'all don't have to catch me like this. Anyway, so Jake, are you out there?
I am right here, madam.
Well, welcome to the District 4 family. I think you are no stranger to us. Thank you for taking time to talk with us about the new assessments that we received to give us firsthand information. I appreciate all of the District 4 family that's able to join us on the call today. And so I am eager to learn and get started. But I am, what is going on? Can you all see me now?
Nope.
We see your picture.
That's probably better than the real thing.
We have lots of folks logging in now. They're starting to trickle on in.
Hey, everybody.
There you are.
How is everybody? So, full disclosure, my husband is doing some renovations. And I'm so grateful for him.
better him than you.
Yes, Jesus.
Yeah, I'm thinking about getting a third job just to be able to afford it so we can pay somebody to come do it. Nobody tell him I said that. Don't tell him.
All right. Well, do you have any ground you want to cover? Would you like me to go ahead and get moving here?
No, sir. I was just kind of waiting for some of our other District 4 team family members to join in, but it is a little, I think it's 6:31, maybe 6:32. So we want to press. Is there any objections to that?
Nope. It's recorded.
Awesome. I will turn this over to Mr. Jake Zimmerman for joining us today, the assessor for the county. I know you all received your assessment, and if not, give Jake a call. But he's here out of his good intentions in his office, just to make sure that we're well informed about what that process, what the assessment is, what the process is, if there's any concerns or issues with your assessment, and then to give you those next steps. So with that, no further ado, welcome Mr. Jake. Hi, Jake.
Hello, Shalonda. Thank you, Madam Councilwoman. And thanks to all of you. I'll try and be respectful of everybody's time and not suck up too much of it here. I've been doing a series of town hall meetings and informational presentations, some of them in person, some of them on Zoom like this. And, you know, when we go and I'm, you know, standing in a city hall chamber or something like that with a great big audience there, sometimes I give a more formal presentation. But I think what I'll do tonight, with everyone's permission, is give you the real abbreviated version. I'll be the shorter version of Jake than the Jake that some of you have sometimes seen, and that way leave as much time as we can to just answer any questions and then get out of your hair so that you all can talk about whatever other business you might want to cover. Let me introduce a couple of people from my office who are here right now. Burchelle McGee is a senior appraisal supervisor in our office. Her video is now on and she's waving to you. Burchelle is a subject matter expert. She is a trained residential appraiser, which means that it is her job to try and figure out what properties are and what properties might sell for on the open market. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And then also here, if you see on your screen, it says Xavier Lukasek, but you get two for the price of one. You got Xavier waving to you on the right and Sarah waving to you on the left. And they are respectively Constituent Services Manager and External Affairs Manager, which means they're in charge of these kinds of public communication efforts and also in charge of making sure we treat taxpayers right. So when somebody somebody falls through the cracks, somebody doesn't get the answers they deserve, or God forbid, someone isn't treated the way they should be. They are our safety valves. And so if you ever, God forbid, have a bad experience with our office and you call your councilwoman and you say, what's going on with those jerks? Her first call is going to be to Xavier or to Sarah, or realistically, Shantae's first call is going to be to them. And they're the people who get answers and make sure we get to the bottom of stuff. So real quick, what's an assessor? Why am I here? What do I do? Missouri law says that I am in charge of the identification, classification, and valuation of real and personal property. That is a lot of legalese. What it really means is you own stuff, and I am the guy who is in charge of finding the stuff, reporting to the county that you own it and not somebody else, and figuring out what you could have sold the stuff for if you sold it on January 1st. That's it. There's two kinds of stuff. There's stuff that sits on the dirt and doesn't move, and there's stuff that moves around. And respectively, those are known in the law as real property and personal property, right? The stuff that sits in the dirt, your house that you're sitting in right now, or the building that you work in, is real property. Your car is the piece of personal property that most people are familiar with, but business equipment is also personal property. Airplanes are personal property. And for that matter, dogs and horses and boats and so forth are all personal property. And having said that, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about personal property, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about commercial property, because what most people care about most of the time is residential real estate. But if any of you have questions about personal property or the other stuff, just hit me when I'm done here and I'll be happy to talk about it. So I just told you what we do. What word did I not say? There's a real big word that people associate with us, and it's not actually in the job description. It's the T word. I didn't say the T word because when you elected me to be your county assessor, the job that you pay me to do is not to be in charge of your taxes. And that's really important, because think about that property tax bill when you pay it. Where does that money really go? It doesn't really go to St. Louis County, even though you send a check to St. Louis County, right? But actually, only a teeny tiny amount of that is going to go to pay for Councilwoman Webb and all the wonderful stuff she's doing on your behalf. There's a whole lot of nickels and dimes. Now, the reason that it's important to spell that out, because most people don't read that pie chart on the back of the tax bill where it is come back here to us in St. Louis County, because it's really important for taxpayers to understand this, and many people do not. I don't get paid based on whether the school district or the fire department makes more money next year or whether they make less money. And neither does Burchell, and neither does Xavier or anybody else in my shop. The only job you are paying Burchell, the appraiser, to do, the reason we hired someone like Burchell and a whole lot of other people like Burchell who are trained in appraising property, is to give them the job of appraising property, not the job of sending you a tax bill. Burchell's job, and her only job, is to try to figure out what your house looks like, to make sure that our records are consistent with what your house really is, and then to make sure we come up with a fair value for what that house really could have sold for if you had sold it on January 1st. Now, the way Missouri law works is that once we have that value for everybody, then we send that on along to the school district and the fire department. They set their tax rates, and the collector's office sends you a bill in December. But if you wait until you get that bill in December and only then do you notice that something is wrong, and you call the county collector's office yelling and screaming, why am I paying this outrageous bill? There's nothing they or anybody else can do under the law to help you, right? The reason you could get a screwed up, unfair tax bill is if we are wrong about your house. If we have the wrong information about your property, if we think that you live in a mansion when you live in a fixer-upper, or more realistically, if we think that you have a finished basement when actually it got flooded and there's nothing in there, or we think you have 3 bathrooms when you really have 1.5, then we'll have the wrong information about your house. And if we're wrong about your house, then that down the road will translate to an unfair tax bill, and you don't want that. But what's more, we're the people who maintain those property records for all of St. Louis County. If you ever call up a real estate agent and you say, hey, Jim, or hey, Sue, I think I might want, they're going to go to the county records. If they're trying to figure out what houses in your neighborhood are looking like or selling for, to figure out how many square feet you have, they don't show up at your house with a tape measure. They take a look at that sketch on our website, and that's the basis for determining what's up with your house. There's a whole lot of things that happen in society, and I won't go into it, but we can talk about it later if you want, that are implicated by what the information is that the assessor's office has about your house. So even though lots of people think they should pay attention to us when a tax bill comes, the truth is that ain't it, right? The time you want to pay attention to us is right now, when we're in the business of making sure that your home's information is accurate. And if you take nothing else away from me spending time with you tonight, the one thing I beg of you, the one thing to remember, the one thing to make a note of is it's a really good idea to take 5 minutes, like right now, this week, to just go to the county website, take a look at the county assessor's real estate information page, and look up your house and just make sure that the information we have is right. Because we got a lot of stuff there. We've got the year that we think it was built and the last year we think it was remodeled. We got not just the square footage, but a sketch of the whole thing, where we think all the outbuildings are, how big we think the lot is, whether there's finish in the basement, the overall grade and condition of the property, go on and on and on. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. But it's really worth your time to take 2 minutes to just see if something is obviously wrong. And if something is obviously wrong, please, no one knows your house better than you. Don't wait till the end of the year. Don't wait till you get that piece of paper in the mail from me about your reassessment. That'll come next month, by the way, right? Don't wait till you get that piece of paper in the mail. Just take a look at it right now. Because if you see something and you say something sooner rather than later, I think you will find that it's much easier to deal with. Councilwoman, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. And I guess it's timely. Thank you so much. So I know I appreciate you, Jake, because I know you're going to give it to us straight, no chaser, and keep it direct, right? So I was joking earlier when I said Steven's doing his own little projects in there, but he is painting. When we talk about those type of projects, some may be just cosmetic, like he's doing some painting, but then some may be some actual interior updates. Which one will we take in consideration when we're concerned about our assessment?
Great question. So because my job is to have an accurate sketch of what your house really looks like, what you'll find is that we come out all the time to take a look. We got people out in the field right now ringing doorbells and looking at houses. Some of you may have seen somebody from my office just in the space of the last few weeks. We visit once every 6 years, whether you need it or not. We visit more frequently when we think properties are going up in value significantly. But the other thing, Councilwoman, is anytime anybody in this county pulls a building permit, I don't care if it's to put in a new air conditioner or to put on a new deck or to do a whole gut rehab, you're not just going to get a visit from the city or the county building inspector. You're also going to get a visit from us to make sure that things are up to date. But you raise a good point, which is I would bet $1 that Steve did not pull a building permit to do some painting on the inside, which means that I don't necessarily know what the finish is on your house on the inside. And back to what I said before, you want us to have updated records. So the most important thing is when somebody rings your doorbell, because whether there's a permit or not, when somebody rings your doorbell, just let them know what the situation is. And in particular, if the inside of your house is totally different than what we think it is, and the most obvious place that would be true is with a basement, because sometimes we just have no idea whether there's real living space in a basement or not, then that's the kind of situation. Normally, nobody wants another county government employee tramping around our house, right? And we never go inside your house unless you ask us to. But if it's a situation where you made a big change on the inside, or you tore something out because you're going to remodel it later, but you haven't done it yet. That's the kind of situation where you would invite them to come inside and take a look because it's in your interest for the records to be right. So moving on from that, let's just talk real quick about the actual valuation and reassessment, and then I'll shut up and take your questions. Every 2 years, we are required by law to come up with a new estimate of what your house could actually sell for. And I'm going to guess that there's not a single person here on this Zoom who has ever sold their house on exactly January 1st. Now, y'all could do me a real big favor, and you could just get into the habit of moving every 2 years on January 1st, okay? If everybody would just sell on January 1st, my job would be real easy. But you all stubbornly refuse to do it. And since you refuse to do it, what we have to do is do the same thing that a real estate agent would do. And what a real estate agent does is when you say, hey, I'm thinking about selling, what could I get? Well, what they do is they look at other properties that have sold recently that look kind of sort of like yours. And to look kind of sort of like your house, it needs 3 things. First of all, it needs to physically look kind of sort of like your house, not be too much bigger or too much smaller. Second, it needs to be kind of sort of near your house, like say in the same school district, ideally where the kids go to the same elementary school, ideally in the same neighborhood, better yet, within a few blocks. And it needs to have sold kind of sort of recently compared to the date we're looking at. Because if it looks just like your house and it's right next door, but it sold 5 years ago, the market has changed a lot since 5 years ago. And since in most cases, we probably won't see that your neighbor happens to have sold their house that's the same size as yours on exactly January 2nd, right? It's always going to be further off than that. So the art of selecting comps, as they say, is an art as much as a science. And just like a good real estate agent, what we're trying to do is find the things that are closest in time, closest in character, closest to in neighborhood to looking like your house. Because if it sold a year ago, we all know the real estate market is different today than a year ago, and we can adjust for that. And if it's 400 square feet bigger, no problem. We know that means the other house is worth a little bit more, and we can adjust for that. But the more different it looks, the more it might not be a good comp. So what we are doing is trying to find those comparable sales. And again, I'll just emphasize this because it's super important. The only thing that we compare your house to is other things that actually sold. We're not comparing you to your neighbor and saying, okay, this house is this size, this house is this size, so we think this one's worth a little more. What we do is we compare you to something that actually sold, and it actually sold in an open market transaction, not, somebody sold it to their nephew or their grandkid, because that's our best way of getting an estimate of what the real prices in the market are. So based on that information and based on other information and economic modeling and different stuff for commercial buildings that I can talk about if you want me to, we come up with that estimate for what every piece of property is worth or would have been worth on exactly January 1st. So what are we seeing? What we're seeing is that the real estate market is still strong in St. Louis County. The good news is that it's almost a certainty that your house is worth more than it was worth 2 years ago. And that's been true for a few years now. We all know that houses were selling like gangbusters during the pandemic. Now, as we're coming out of the pandemic, things are a little bit different. It's not quite the same across the board. And the other thing is, I think everybody knows, at least intuitively, that things have changed a lot in the last few months. The market was still going real gangbusters in 2021. 2021 into early mid 2022, great time to sell a house. If you wanted to sell your house and you listed it for sale, it might have sold the next day at a number even bigger than you thought you were going to get. But then the last 6 to 9 months or so, starting in, let's say, June or July of 2022, interest rates start going up, mortgages start getting more expensive, and then all of a sudden, those sale prices started coming down from their highs. So while homes throughout St. Louis County are worth more than they used to be 2 years ago, they're probably not worth quite as much as they were worth 8 months ago. Now, here's the really interesting thing that's happening. The really interesting thing that's happening is where homes are doing really, really well, is actually not in the ritziest and the most affluent parts of St. Louis County. We're seeing more moderate increases in the Claytons and Ladus and Kirkwoods and Chesterfields of the world. The place where people are really doing well with that investment, the place where you're seeing property values increase significantly compared with 2 years ago, is actually in North County and some of the more affordable parts of South County. This is a particularly good time, believe it or not, to own a starter house in, for example, the Normandy School District. It's a particularly good time, and it's been a good time to own houses in places like Afton and Lee May also. And there's a lot of reasons why that's happening, but I think the bottom line is just that a whole lot of people want to buy that first house. And if you're trying to get out of mom and dad's basement, or you're trying to stop renting and you want to buy, you're not looking to buy a $500,000 house. You're lucky if you can get enough down payment to buy a $100 and something thousand house. And in that situation, what we're seeing is $100 and something thousand houses have been going up in value more than $200 and something thousand houses. And the $200,000 houses have been going up in value more than the $300,000 houses on average. Not true for everybody, not true for anyone's individual property, but it's what's been happening the last couple of years. And so it's a double-edged sword, right? It's really, really good news for the community. It's good news for you if you're a homeowner. It's bad news if you're a first-time buyer. If you're somebody who's trying to get out of renting and you want your piece of the American dream, it is getting harder to get it on the front end. And it's a big concern for me on a public policy level. If you care about housing in this community, you should be worried about this. But the other reason it's a double-edged sword is it goes back to what I said before, which is that in that situation where those property values are going up, if the assessor's office is wrong about your house in particular, the effect can be magnified. When the market is going up all around you, if yours goes up more than everybody else's because we gave you an extra bathroom that you don't really have, then you may see pain and unfairness in December when the tax bill comes. And so I'll end where I started, which is this is the time to look. Don't wait until you get that piece of paper in the mail. Yes, when you get the piece of paper in the mail, you have the opportunity to go through the official process, which is called an appeal before the Board of Equalization. And I can answer questions. We can talk about that if anyone has questions about it. But there's a way, if you don't agree with our value on your home, there's a way to bring appraisal evidence to the table, information about the value of your property, and have someone who doesn't work for me take an independent look at it. And we can talk about that later if folks have questions. But in terms of right now, the thing that you really want to do right now is you want to take a look and just make sure that we have the basic info about your property right. And if something seems like it is wrong, you should reach out to us. We'll make sure that Xavier supplies our contact info, or you can contact the councilwoman and she'll put you in touch with us so we can get questions answered and fix mistakes where appropriate. So there's lots more I could say about all of this. I can talk to you about our early review program for people who may disagree with our valuations. I can talk about what good appraisal evidence looks like and how we can sort of help you to help us get it right. But rather than me sort of blathering it all at you, I'd rather answer your questions. And I see a couple of them in the chat already. So let me go ahead and take those, and then we'll just sort of let folks who feel more comfortable talking with their voices do so too. So the first thing I see in the chat is from Mr. Adams. And Mr. Adams asks, what is real living space? And I'm not totally sure I get what the question is. So can I ask you, Mr. Adams, to just clarify what you're asking?
I think you can hear me now.
Yes, sir.
Yes. You had said in your commentary earlier about defining real living space. So those are words that you used in reference to like a finished basement or something like that.
Gotcha. I gotcha. So
okay.
Yeah, the thing you would probably want to take a look at is what we say the square footage is of living space in your home. And we do treat finished basements as living space. We have two different ways that we characterize it. If it's the kind of finished basement where it's got bedroom and bathroom and separate access to the outside world, like it's got its own door, then we call it finished basement living area, and we treat that square footage the same way as if it were on the first or the second floor. If, however, the more common situation is that you finished part of the basement, but the other part of it is the laundry room and the drain, and you've got a nice little man cave down there, but it's not where your master bedroom is, we call that a rec room. Whether it's really a recreation area or not, we call that finished space rec room, and it'll never be more than a portion of the total square footage of your basement. If your basement has 1,000 square feet, we'll say that the rec room is 300 square feet of finished space. But the bottom line is that you can see real quick if we're right or not by taking a look at the measurements that we have of like the walls and sides of your house. And you'll see a sketch that looks like a series of squares and triangles. And if those numbers are right, then the square footage is going to be right. And if those numbers are wrong, we want you to let us know about it. All right. Next question is from Cookie, which is, how do you determine value on property bought by investors? Great question. So when investors buy property in the open market in a fair transaction where both sides are represented, and there's a realtor involved, then that's an open market sale like anything else, and it's usually a fair representation of the price of the property. Where we get the ookie gookies is when something sells in foreclosure, short sale, courthouse steps, those kinds of situations. Distressed sales like that are not a good and a fair value of what you would have gotten for the house if you sold it on January 1st and you weren't trying to get out of a bad situation. Here's the really, really good news for North County and for St. Louis County as a whole. The last couple of years, for the first time in a decade, we are seeing more sales from LLCs to real people than the other way around. And what that means in the real world is it means these investors are starting to get out of the market. It means that we're on a slow path to having more homeowners and fewer renters. And we all know, anybody who's been in this community for the past 10 years and anybody who remembers the Great Recession, we all know what happened, right? And what happened was a huge conversion of owner-occupied housing to rental housing. And it scared the heck out of me, because when someone gets foreclosed on, it's not just a tragedy for the person who just lost their house. It's also bad for the neighborhood. It's bad for the schools. It's bad for public safety. It's bad for cleanliness. There's just a whole bunch of ways in which the average street is going to be better if there's more people who own their house on it. So it's really exciting to me to see that we're seeing those rates of individual home ownership going up again. But in the meantime, we still have plenty of these investor-owned properties. And a big priority for me is making sure that they are treated the same as everybody else. One problem in my line of work is that the kind of people who can afford good lawyers and fancy suits have a way of thinking that they get to come to the front of the line. And one of the reasons I do these kinds of informational sessions and town hall meetings is to demystify the process of talking to us and coming to the Board of Equalization. Because if I mess something up with Aunt Ethel may not know or may be too scared to come in and deal with it. But that landlord and their lawyers, they're not scared. And they're always going to come in and they're always going to try and get mistakes corrected in their favor. And if we don't mind the store, they're going to do more than that. And they'll try to get windfalls that they don't deserve. So a big part of my job, and the part that I don't spend so much time in these meetings talking about, is fighting back against those guys and doing battle with big corporate property owners throughout St. Louis County, because ultimately, if they get a break they don't deserve, everybody else pays more. All right, so Mary Lou has a question, which is, does a new roof make a difference? And the answer is sure. The reason that a new roof would make a difference is if you look at the way we characterize your property, you'll see two things that you might pay attention to. One is grade and one is condition, which is sometimes abbreviated CDU, which stands for condition, desirability, and utility. Grade is a measure of the kind of materials your house was built with in the first place. Like, was it a lot of brick and stone? Was it a lot of vinyl siding, right? What style of construction was it in the first place? And then the second one, CDU, the condition, is more, what kind of shape is it in right now? And grade is going to be constant based on the type of construction. Condition is not. Condition is based on your neighborhood. You would want, what we want is most properties in any neighborhood to be listed in average condition, so that the ones that aren't average, either because they just did a total renovation, new roof, new kitchen, everything else, needs to be in something higher than average, and something that is pretty clearly a fixer-upper needs to be in something less than average condition. And so the thing that makes a difference there, more so than a roof, is if you're in a situation where there's stuff that needs work in your house, and we think you're in just as good condition as your neighbors with shiny newer properties, that's a situation, again, where it's in your interest to let us know about it. And a common reason why we're wrong about the value of property, and a common reason why someone would ask for an early review or come do an appeal at the Board of Equalization, would be because we think your house is in great condition, but actually, like, the kitchen hasn't been updated since the 1970s, and it still has that same lime green kitchen cabinet paneling that it had back when they built it, and there's mold in the basement, and you don't have that new roof, right? So Mary Lou, imagine that you don't have the new roof, but instead what you have is you have an estimate from the contractor that says the new roof will cost $15,000. So in that situation, that estimate is helpful to us because it tells us that you might have $15,000 less of house than we think you have because you haven't actually replaced the roof yet. I hope that makes sense. All right. I'm scrolling past the councilwoman's contact info, which is all there. And at the end of this, I'll ask Xavier to put our contact info in the chat too for anyone who needs it. And I see that Ms. Lawson has a question, which is, what are the approximate number of appeals cases in the county, and how long does it take for an appeal decision to be rendered? So what we have seen over the past few years is that about 5% of property owners will file an appeal in any given 2-year cycle. And there's 400,000-ish pieces of property in the county. So you can do the math. That's about 20,000 appeals. Of those, a few thousand of them, give or take, are real people. And the rest of them are these big corporate tax rep firms. And some of that is just that a whole lot of commercial property owners file appeals every 2 years because commercial property is big and complicated, and they want to go through the rent rolls and the tenant lists and all the stuff we don't have access to up front. But some of it is people who are trying to game the system and people who are trying to take advantage of you. And so I do want to give a word of caution about some of these companies. Some of these companies will send you mailings, and they will promise you that they'll do it for you for free. You don't have to do anything. They'll file your appeal. It's free money because all they'll do is give you back half of any money they save. Well, let me tell you that for many people, that works out to be kind of sort of a scam, because you, in all probability, could have just come in and corrected the error yourself, or shared the kind of evidence of real estate condition that I talked about before, and done this yourself and taken 15 minutes. And now you're not paying $1,000 or $500 or whatever it is to one of these companies. So I would say think twice before doing business with those people. You can always give us a call first, have somebody in our office talk you through the process before deciding you need that kind of help without knowing what it will cost up front. All right. Mr. Green has a question, which is there a cap on the increase in real property taxes? Can the assessment value of a property double year over year or 2 years? So first question first, there is a cap on taxes, and the way it works, it's something called the Hancock Amendment. Hancock Amendment is real complicated. I'm not going to give a college level course on it, but the real simple version, and I'm oversimplifying here, but the real simple version is no free money for the taxing districts, no free money for the school district and the fire department. If the property values go up, the school district and the fire department are required to cut their tax rate so they don't get extra money. So let me give you a stupid example. Let's say that I woke up tomorrow morning and I decided, let's say that all the property in the Riverview Gardens School District, let's make up a number. Let's say that there's $100 million worth of stuff in the school district. And let's say that the schools are actually getting about 1% of that out of the property tax bill. So there's $100 million worth of every house and every commercial building added up, and the school district is therefore getting $1 million in taxes. Okay, now let's say that Jake Zimmerman goes on a bender. I had a real bad night, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to double the value of all the property in Riverview Gardens. I'm going to say your house doubled, and your house doubled, and your house doubled. Everything's worth 100% more than it used to be worth. Well, number one, you'll be angry at me because that's not really true. But number two, you would think that what that means is the school district people are going to be laughing all the way to the bank, right? You would think, well, they got the same tax rate, so now they make $2 million instead of $1 million. But you'd be wrong. What happens under Missouri law is the school district has to cut their taxes in half. So they get the same $1 million that they got last year, but it's half the tax rate on double the amount of stuff. And you can see why it works that way, and that's designed to be fair to you and everybody else in the community. But it's a really important point, which is that sometimes people get hung up on, oh my God, houses are going up in value. This must mean my taxes are going up. Well, no, not necessarily. The reason your taxes go up, even if your house didn't go up that much in value, is because you passed a bond issue for the school district or a tax levy for the fire district or what have you. But going back to what I said before, if everybody's house is going up in value somewhat, but I made a mistake on your house and the value of your home skyrocketed because I think you have that shiny new kitchen that you don't, then you will get treated unfairly compared to your neighbor, and that is not good. All right, I'm going to let Burchell answer Ms. Armand's question, which is, what does a C- grade mean? You want to talk real quick about what that means in the context of grades of houses?
Well, just like the beginning of the alphabet, we have several. We have E, D, C, which is kind of in the middle, B, A, X, and S, which S is those $10, $13 million homes. So C is kind of in the middle, just like in school. It's the average style house, usually our standard ranches and bungalows, maybe 800 to 1,400 square feet, roughly, just basically your starter type house.
Thank you. I knew you would be able to give a more detailed answer than I could. I'm still hoping to get me an S house one of these days, but probably not working in public service.
We don't want to pay the taxes on that.
No, probably not. I should have stayed a lawyer if I wanted to do that. All right. Mr. Clark says, I might have missed this, but how do you view the information that the county has about your house? The answer is on our website. You can get there from the main St. Louis County website, or just Google St. Louis County Assessor and find the county webpage that has my smiling picture on it. And then the magic words you're looking for are real estate information. And when you click that link that says real estate information, you'll come to a place where you can look it up by name, by address, by our locator number, and you'll see it's all public records. And you can look at the stuff we have in your neighborhood. You can see homes that recently sold in your neighborhood, other homes that sold that we think are comparable to yours. Lots of good stuff, and it's worth playing around with. And if anybody has trouble finding it, don't be shy about reaching out to us. We'll be happy to talk you through it. All right, next question is from Corey Smith, who says, as a homeowner, my wife and I are greatly concerned about our home value. We're seeing an alarming trend of rental properties which tend to be Section 8. What can be done to help homeowners like my wife and I protect our home value? So this sort of goes to what I was talking about before, right? Like the best thing we can do for our community is to keep people in their homes. And so the fact that some of these investors are selling is good news. The fact that property values are going up is good news. But I'm scared about the broader access to affordable housing because, you know, it's great for you if your home has doubled in value over the last 5 years. But every existing homeowner whose home doubles in value is some 26-year-old who is going to find it all the more unaffordable to buy and move in, right? And so I really think that affordable housing is a big challenge in this community. One of the reasons why those $100,000 and $200,000 houses are going up in value faster than everything else is that there's not a lot of other places in town where you can even buy a house in that price range. Like people say, oh, well, you know, if you're willing to move way out to the country, you know, go out to deepest, darkest St. Charles County, and, you know, you can afford something out there as long as you don't mind being in what my aunt would have called East Kishinev, then, you know, you'll be fine. But the truth is that even way, way out in the farthest stretches of green fields in St. Charles County, McBride and Son and those other home builders, they're not going to sell you a house for less than maybe $350,000. So it is a big concern that owner-occupied housing for that starter house is getting out of reach for people. And then on the back end, we have another problem. And here I need to editorialize a little bit. You know, I'm your county assessor, but in a different life, I was a state representative. I served with Councilwoman Webb's husband, who was also at the time a state representative. And in those days, we were at the beginning of a problem that has only gotten worse since then. And that problem is senior citizens on fixed incomes getting taxed out of their homes. And it's straightforward, right? You're on Social Security, you're on a teacher's pension, whatever it is, and your income doesn't get much bigger from year to year, but the property taxes go up year after year after year. And whether that's because of appreciation of home values or more likely because of bond issues in the school districts and what have you, the burden still falls the heaviest on those folks. And this is a solvable problem, and a civilized society should not tax people who have worked hard all their lives out of their homes. But what the Missouri legislature did some years ago, at the same time as folks were waving their left hand and saying, look at us, we're cutting taxes, right? They're cutting sales taxes, they're cutting income taxes. But then on the other hand, they took away something called the homestead credit. And the homestead credit was a state program explicitly designed to help people in that situation, to help them be able to afford those increasing tax payments. It is outrageous that our elected officials have not taken a stronger stance to protect people and help keep people in their homes. And so, you know, when Mr. Smith says what can be done to help homeowners protect their home value, part of what we can do to help people protect their home value is make sure the government isn't forcing them out of their houses. And I would encourage you to talk to your state reps and your state senators and pass along that message that we want the homestead credit back, that we want them to expand the circuit breaker, which is the other thing that the state does to help people in that situation, but which is not as strong as it should be. And then more deep than that, I just want to say that my personal view, and I bet Councilwoman Webb agrees with me, is that housing policy is everything. That you can't have education policy without talking about housing. You can't have public safety without talking about housing. If I want Mr. Smith to have a strong home value, it's not just about who's owning and who's renting in the street that he lives. It's also about public safety and police protection. It's also about the quality of public education. It's also about parks and the livability of neighborhoods. So when we talk about making sure that our fair share of resources are spent specifically in the parts of the county that need it the most, when we talk about equity throughout St. Louis County, never forget that you're also talking about home values. Roundabout way down the road, you're also talking about assessments. All right, I'm going to scroll down. I see some thanks. You're welcome. All right, and I see another question from Mr. Green, who's asking about the homestead exemption. Is there any type of relief? So I think I just answered that. And then I see that Cookie has said the same thing I just said, and has emphasized that the circuit breaker has not caught up with the cost of living, which is 100% true. 100% true. The state, what the state has done is appalling, especially now in a time of budget surplus. It's not like they can plead poverty. The state has more money to spend than they know what to do with, and they're using that money to widen Interstate 70 even without getting that money from gas taxes to pay for it. Just my personal opinion. I'm a county elected official these days, not a state elected official, and we're on county time here, so I don't want to get too political, but I can't get on this soapbox and not say that the state ought to fix this and that we should all be raising our voices to advocate for that. That's all I see in the chat box. Is there anybody who wants to wave their hand or who feels more comfortable speaking with their voice? Any questions I haven't been able to answer? I'm looking around and I'm not seeing any. So Councilwoman Webb, can I hand the floor back to you?
Yes, sir. And so I appreciate you, Jake, and your team, Xavier and Ms. Burrell. Did I say your name right, ma'am? What's her name?
No,
You were
it's
close.
Rochelle.
Rochelle. Okay. I want to thank you all for taking time out, and I appreciate you all just talking plain and simple and direct about what we need to be concerned about. We do have a newly elected state representative in our area. Her name is Chantel Nixon Clark. I'm sure she wouldn't mind at all if you all reached out to her to share your concerns about the circuit breaker and all of the other issues at the state level that Assessor Jake has informed us about. And so again, I encourage you all to reach out to our state representative. We will as well reach out to Ms. Nixon Clark because she's definitely been a friend to our community.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question. I wanted to follow up on something.
Yes.
Okay, so I was looking online at most of the homes in our subdivision, and they're all coded like C minus. And you said that those were standard starter homes. And there's not a home in the subdivision that's not a 4-bedroom home.
That's a common term for it, but it depends
Okay.
on the area. And sometimes where you think it should be graded higher, there's cost associated with higher grades and CDUs. And sometimes we may have to do a neighborhood review because when we do the assessment, sometimes the figures may be quite a bit higher than they need to be based on how we have the data in the system. So if we had some sales showing that those houses were running maybe around 220, 250 at a B, and then if we had it graded at a B, when we did the calculations through our cost methods, that would bring your assessment maybe closer to $300,000 or $400,000. And that is not what the sale is showing. So we have to find a way to make, like they say, make it make sense. So if we had it, it's like, oh, this is a B grade house. This is beautiful. It's a 4-bedroom, 4.5 bath, finished basement, 3-car, oversized garage, over there off Vale in that area, which is what they are. But if we were to keep that grade up high like that, that would push the value up higher than what they are selling for. So sometimes we do have to adjust that. And usually we categorize the neighborhood together. And it may not be that they may be average. The whole neighborhood can be fair based on how they're selling and how the numbers are coming in. So it can be a starter home, but then in our area up north and some parts of South, we do have Ds and Es. So if you think about some of the smaller brick bungalows located along Jennings Station Road, things like that, those could be maybe a D minus. We have some houses that they might call river homes along the Merrimack. Those can be Es. So it kind of depends, and it depends on what's in the house. If you've got this house and there's 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom, and the only access to the basement is from outside through the crawl space, I went in somebody's house like that, and the way to the basement was through the floor. She moved the coffee table for me and lifted up a door and wanted me to go see her basement. I believe you, ma'am. I believe you. So, so yes, there are quite a few varieties, but there's also on our website, I put the link on there. When you look at your comparables, there's also a glossary of terms on there that you can familiarize yourself with. But looking at our website and you and your neighbor's hole is like going over a rabbit hole. And next thing you know, 3 hours later, you're still sitting there looking at information. But we are available, and Xavier will put our phone number on there, and we do answer our phone. And so if you have any questions, you can always call.
Okay, great. great, because I was just kind of thrown off when you said starter homes, and I know most of the homes are 3 and 4 bedrooms or more. So,
Mhm.
but now I understand. Okay.
Yeah,
So
sometimes
I really appreciate it.
they don't, sometimes you might not want us to do that because then it'll be higher.
I
So-
don't want you to. I do know,
Oh, let me look you up real quick and see what you got going on over there.
but I do know, if someone asks, in the subdivision meeting, I want to be able to explain it.
Are y'all having a meeting Saturday morning?
No,
Okay.
but soon, but soon.
I
but
saw some
soon.
signs up for some subdivision meetings.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll put you on the calendar.
Uh-oh, no, not me.
But thank you. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you, Miss Burchell. I really appreciate your thoroughness and again, how detailed and just straightforward in working and walking through this so we are informed. I really like to hear the lady who just spoke saying that she's going to share it. And I need everybody to share this information, even if it's the websites, even if it's the glossary or the dictionary of terms. The more we know, the better we are, right? And we are all in this together. So please share at your subdivision meetings. If you want us to come to your subdivision meetings, maybe not Mr. Jake, I'm sure his calendar is full, but we can bring information with us for you all to go and dig and have it at your fingertips at your leisure. So please share. We want to all know and be informed. We don't have to hoard information. So again, all of us that are on here that are centers of influence, and you are a center of influence if you speak to your neighbor, because you are then engaging them. And so be that center of influence and share this information as well. I don't know if there are any go backs, Jake or Miss Burchell or Xavier.
Well, I just wanted to touch on something you just said by sharing the information. We talked about this in the town hall meeting last night. Sometimes all this information is intimidating to people, especially our elderly. So reach out to those elder people in your community, your family members. And a lot of times you will ask them, well, how is your house? And they'll say, it's fine. Well, it is fine to them. It's nothing's broken down. It's clean and they're comfortable. But you know that the homes that we compared them to have been modernized and fixed up. But to that elderly family, they're fine. But see, they are not in the same condition as those ones that just sold. And so sometimes they need to get in touch with us and you may need to help them out. And then maybe at one of those meetings where you're sharing that information, something like an overhead where somebody's working the website and show them how to get to their information is helpful as well. Or they could actually call us and we will walk them through the steps over the phone and let them know how to find their information, or we'll find it for them.
The one thing that all of you have in common with everybody else who has shown up at one of my presentations over the past month is that you all care and are paying attention, right? You are the kind of people who show up for a county councilwoman's session on Zoom just because she invited you. So that makes you unusually special and engaged people in the community. So Burchell's got it right. There's a whole lot of people who aren't ever going to show up for a meeting like this, but who would really benefit from the one thing that I said. Remember what I said, if you take away nothing else from this, it's just go take a couple of minutes to look at our information about your house and make sure we got it right. So I bet you know somebody on your street who needs that advice and you can be the person to give it to them. And I highly encourage you to do that because you can help us serve the public better. Back to one other thing I said before, which is that the people with the lawyers and the Gucci suits will always find their way to us. But the only person who can help somebody on your street know that the county's not a big old bunch of ogres, but instead we're just chock full of appraisers who actually want to help make sure we're right about your property. You may be the only person who can let them know that.
That was very key, Jake and Miss Burchell, because again, we're in this together. I say it all the time. I know it's all cliches, but we have to help take care of each other, especially our elders. many of our elders love their communities and they don't want to leave. And so if we can give them a helping hand, I believe that is our responsibility to do so. I'm just an old Southern girl that used to clean my neighbor's silver with the toothbrush for 2 pieces of butterscotch candy. That's what I used to do when I grew up. And so it's ingrained in me, and I'm hoping it's ingrained in the two of you, all of us as well. One final go back, if there are neighbors or church members that do not have access to the internet, and they do not have, someone that's just coming around and let them look on their iPad or cell phone. Outside of the telephone number, is there any other information, Assessor Zimmerman, that we get our hands on to help disseminate?
Well, that's one reason why we do send that piece of paper out in the mail next month, and why everybody will get that in the mail, right? Whether they go to the website or not. And so I think you could encourage everybody to not throw that out when it comes, because sometimes people get that piece of paper and they think, whatever, it says on top, this is not a bill, right? So a lot of people think, okay, well, then I won't pay attention to it. But then when the bill comes in December, it's too late. So you could encourage people to do that, or you can help them take a look at it yourself. And then if you see that something looks wacky and that one person in the neighborhood is showing a number much higher than everybody else's, then maybe you could be the person who takes it upon yourself to take a look at the information about their property online and see if something looks wrong.
That's a good idea. I just had another thought on the top of my dome, so deal with me for thinking out loud. But maybe Miss Rochelle, you can help us put a one-pager together. Y'all may have something
They're
already.
already
We have it already, and we'll be happy to share them with Shantae, who will share them with
Actually,
you.
I have them, but please share more. We have been giving them to Miss Cookie in Spanish Lake, who would probably like Miss Burchell to come. I don't know if you saw that in the comments, but they sent a brochure out a month or so ago, and we've given them out to Spanish Lake. You probably didn't know it because we was giving it out with senior books and other resources with Castle and everything else. So we have been handing those out, and Miss Cookie at Spanish Lake had been handing them out as well.
Wonderful. Glad that that's already taking place. I still would like to have something electronic, if we can put it on Facebook and keep it going out, and then put something
We'll
at the top.
we'll get you a PDF of it.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
Go ahead, Ms. Cookie.
Councilwoman Webb,
Mhm.
I'm telling you, those senior books that Shantae brought out and that information, I mean, that seemed like that was the biggest success up there at the Twillman that I've ever seen.
Awesome. I am so
No
happy.
joke. People didn't know some of those things.
Mhm.
And then in the evenings, I would come and read some of the stuff so that I could tell them little things, inserts inside the book. They were amazed.
Yeah.
Well,
and
I
that was
definitely
one of
got to
the
let
things.
the older adult commission know that we greatly appreciate them sharing that resource with us. And if they have more, I'll take more of them so I can disseminate them to the community, get additional out to the community as well. Sorry.
Miss Mary Lou.
Miss Mary Lou?
Yes, I just wanted to know if there was going to be a recorded, a link that I could share with my neighbors so
Yes,
they
ma'am.
could watch it.
He's recording this meeting. Like we'll put them on YouTube, and we'll also send an email blast out with the link in it.
Sounds good. And where can I get the senior book? Is there
You and I are gonna chat after this meeting, so I'll
Okay.
get one.
all right. Thank you very much.
And I would also like to encourage, if you have subdivision meetings gathering and you want some of that material, to just let us know so we can bring them over to you all. Shantae does a phenomenal job of meeting someone or going to the event and bring them like she did at the Twillman House. And then we can get that to you all in preparation for your meeting. Because as Ms. Cookie said, it was a great value to have that resource for the seniors.
Absolutely. Thank you. Because we've got some seniors in our subdivision. So I look out for them being a senior. So
You can get a package together for Miss Mary Lou.
Yeah, and Councilwoman Tina said that we'll bring some to Blackjack too. So if Xavier, if you can get us some more copies, because I was just making them at the office, but if you already have some, that would be great.
thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Teamwork makes the dream work. I know my kids say I'm so corny, but I do believe that, y'all.
Yes.
Any go backs? Any other questions? I appreciate you all sacrificing the time to be informed and to help take care of our community. We are the District 4 family and we take care of each other. Thank you so much, Jake, Ms. Burchell again, and Xavier for taking time out of your schedules to be with
Sarah.
us.
Hey, Sarah.
And
Thank you, District 4.
yes.
Thank you for
Gotta
having
get-
us.
And with that, everybody, y'all have a blessed evening. Be safe and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any needs.
Thank
Goodbye.
you very
Thank
much.
you so much.
Well, good
Great
night.
information. Thank you. Good night.